Sophia is a single mother raising her son. Busy with work, she was forced to leave him at home alone. Gradually, she noticed that her son's sketchbook always showed a figure standing outside the window. Worried, she asked her family to stay home with her son to find out what was going on. But the reality was more painful than she imagined. Sophia is a single mother raising her son, George, alone. To ensure George went to a better school, she invested all her energy in buying a shabby district-owned apartment in a remote alley in the old city. The alley was narrow and deep, making it difficult for sunlight to enter during the day. The house was at the end of the alley, with weeds growing in front of the door, and rarely anyone walked around. To make a living, Sophia was busy working every day and could only return home late at night. After school, George had to go home by himself, eat the dinner Sophia had left for her, and quietly wait for his mother to return. Sophia recently discovered several strange drawings in George's sketchbook. The drawings showed a child playing with a figure standing outside the window, happily playing various games. Sophia didn't pay much attention to it, dismissing it as a child's fantasy. But one evening, after taking a shower, she looked into the bathroom mirror. Steam had covered its surface, forming distorted, blurry lines. She moved closer to it, carefully considering its meaning. Suddenly, her pupils dilated, and the meaning emerged in the background. It was a line of large, twisted letters. George is my king. With a quick thought, Sophia quickly reached out to wipe the thread off the mirror, wrapped herself in a bath towel, and hurried out of the bathroom. She took out George's sketchbook and stared at the figure outside the window. Thinking back to the thread on the mirror, a terrifying hypothesis emerged. There really was such a person, and she had even gotten in. The words were a provocation. The next day, Sophia took the day off to stay at home with George, secretly watching everything outside the window, hoping to find out who was playing with George through it. But a whole day passed in vain. Finally, in the evening, she couldn't help but ask George hesitantly, "George, did you write on the bathroom mirror yesterday?" George looked at Sophia curiously. "Mirror, what are these words?" George said. "Did you write this?" "No," Sophia asked. "I can't reach the mirror." George scratched his head. "Who is that in your drawing? Who plays with you outside the window every day? Isn't she here today?" George was shocked. "Mom, the square I drew isn't a window. It's a mirror. And the person over there isn't someone else. It's you. Isn't it the same?" Sophia's heart suddenly pounded, and her breathing caught. "Mirror, myself in the mirror." Her head felt prickly, and fear swept through her heart like a poisonous snake. She swallowed her fear, let George finish his homework, and walked slowly to the bathroom. The corridor she usually walked back and forth along seemed extraordinarily long today. The bathroom door, which usually opened and closed effortlessly, felt strangely heavy. Sophia shuddered as she approached the mirror. Today, it was fog-free, reflecting her pale face. She stared at herself in the mirror. Everything seemed normal, but the closer she looked, the more she felt something was off. She realized that the person in the mirror was expressionless, their movements stiff. But it was her heart pounding, her breathing rapid, her forehead covered with sweat. How could her expression be so serene? Instinctively, she raised her hand and gently touched her cheek, her fingers feeling warm and trembling. But the person in the mirror's movement was slightly delayed by half a breath. This momentary delay made her heart race. She instinctively lowered her hand, but the person in the mirror remained frozen in air. It wasn't her at all. The air seemed frozen, and the only sound in the bathroom was Sophia's heavy breathing. Her body was rigid, as if it were nailed to the floor, not daring to move an inch. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth in the mirror turned up slightly, forming a strange smile. It was cold, eerie, and terrifying, like the arrival of death. Sophia's throat seemed blocked, unable to utter a sound. Her body took an uncontrollable step backward, trying to escape this strange sight. But the figure in the mirror suddenly stepped forward, pressing against the surface, its sunken eyes fixed on Sophia. Sophia collapsed to the floor, frightened, kicking backward, her back against the wall. The figure in the mirror slowly raised its hand, its slender, calloused fingers, and slowly passed through the mirror, as if slicing through water unhindered. The woman in the mirror slowly began to crawl out, her movements stiff, her hands and feet curled as if they belonged to someone else. Her nails scraped the mirror and the tiles, making a gruff sound. She landed on all fours and slowly stood, her toes still wearing their strange smile as she looked down at the fallen Sophia. Sophia's heart nearly burst out of her chest. Her respirator was broken and cold. Her mind faded, her vision darkening before she lost consciousness. An unknown amount of time passed before Sophia awoke in complete darkness, a wide, cold curtain enveloping her. The air was filled with an eerie, dead silence. She couldn't even hear her own breathing or heartbeat. She screamed, she cried for help, but her voice seemed to fade into thin air. Try as she might, she couldn't hear a single sound. Suddenly, she saw a dim light in the distance, as if it were the only way out of the darkness. Its radiance was dazzling through the thick shadows. Sophia felt a surge of joy, as if she were grasping a lifeline, and stumbled toward the light. Fear weakened her legs, but she continued to run desperately toward it, as if it were the only way out of the pitch-black darkness. When she finally reached the light, she stopped in her tracks. It was a window, and outside was the familiar bathroom, the place she walked in and out of every morning and night. Sophia was stunned for a moment, her eyes fixed outside. A shiver ran through her body. This wasn't a bed at all, but a mirror hanging on the bathroom wall, and she was trapped inside. Before Sophia could think, a familiar voice suddenly boomed from outside the mirror. Startled, she looked up and saw George leading a woman who looked just like her into the bathroom. The woman was wearing her clothes, her hairstyle, and even her facial expression was identical. Sophia recognized her immediately. It was her own reflection. Now, they switched roles. George shook the woman's arm and pointed happily in the mirror. "Look," Sophia said, startled by the sight. "That's you in the mirror. Every day at work, it's you playing with me in the mirror." Fear immediately gripped Sophia's heart. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She slammed the mirror, wanting to shout a warning. "George, run!" "That's not me." But the mirror was like a silent wall, isolating all her sounds. Her voice rose in her throat, but was not heard. A helpless echo echoed in her mind. Sophia began to scratch the mirror like a madwoman, trying desperately to write, "George is mine. Give him back to me." But mid-speech, her hand froze, and tears of despair fell from her eyes. "George is mine." Those twisted words were all too familiar.